Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to New Heart Ministries Holy Convocation Week. This week we are coming from our Author's Corner, and we are so excited to share with you some amazing African American authors who are just exemplifying excellence and changing our community one day at a time. Today I have the pleasure of presenting none other than Dr. Jessica Wallace McBride. Let's give her a welcome. Thank you for joining us, Dr. McBride. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, yes. And Dr. McBride is going to share with us some information regarding this wonderful book that she has written, Oliver Vance, Pull Up Your Pants. So I want to start off by asking how you came up with this clever idea of introducing this story to your audience.
So I can't take credit for the initial idea. This idea was actually brought to me. And it was brought to me because I was working at that time as an editor and a proofreader with a background in English and all of that. And people were coming to me with ideas all the time. And so someone approached me with this idea for a children's book. And when he said the title, I immediately fell in love just because it sounded great, it rhymed, I knew it would be catchy, and also because the content that it was dealing with was something that needed to be dealt with. And so I kind of put my education background with what he was presenting as the issue, and we worked together to develop this story to be able to present it in a way that might help people without being accusatory or without placing blame. Because at the end of the day, I'm a teacher. I believe in giving people information and letting them make decisions. And so Oliver Vance, Pull Up Your Pants was born. It actually became the basis for a conflict resolution program. So we used it and we visited schools and we taught children how to resolve conflict, how to mediate conflicts. So it was really about character education. And we see some elements of that in how Oliver moves throughout the book.
That's amazing. So if you could share with our audience a special experience that you've had or an encounter with someone whose life has been elevated from this book or has had an experience that changed their path.
So, once someone who looks like you sees you do something they've thought about doing, it becomes that much more real to them.
Yes.
So the experience that I've had has been when people have approached me and said, I've always wanted to write a book. I have an idea for a book. They've probably had the idea for years and they just haven't taken the step. But once they meet me and they realize not only have I written this book, I've written another book, and then I started my own publishing company, just interacting with someone for whom that is a reality makes the possibility very real for them. And so through my publishing company, I have been able to make the dream of becoming an author a reality for a lot of people, and it's quality work. And that's key because there are so many people out there. You can just go right now and put your name on a book if that's the goal. It just might be trash.
Right.
But if you don't want it to be trash, you gotta find yourself a reputable person who takes pride without taking all of your money, who really wants to see you do well and do that. So I think the greatest impact has just been that seeing me, knowing me, interacting with me has made people realize, hey, I can achieve that dream too.
That's absolutely amazing. Well, I'm excited. I'm a fan of this book, and I'm excited for our audience to experience this, those who have already read it or heard of it, and those who have not. So, without further ado, I present to you our author, Dr. Jessica Wallace McBride.
And with that, I am going to share my screen instead of holding the book up for you guys. And you are going to read it like this. Okay? Did that work?
Yep, we're there.
All right, so I'm going to move through these pages, and here we are on the first page of the story. So I'm going to read it really quickly, going straight through. This is the story of Oliver Vance, a boy who refused to pull up his pants. Oliver was a friendly boy who wanted to do nothing more than to grow up to become a fireman. His room was filled with toy fire trucks and fireman hats. There were pictures of fire trucks on his walls, and he slept in his favorite fireman pajamas every night. Some mornings, Oliver sat in his bedroom window and watched as fire trucks would rush by on their way to put out fires or help people in need. Oliver would spring to his toy box, grab one of his toy fire trucks, and roll it around on the floor. Woo, 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 he howled, and he dreamed of one day being a fearless fireman. Whenever she heard all the commotion, Oliver's mother yelled from the kitchen, "Oliver, put away your toys and get ready for school. You're going to be late and miss the bus." "Okay, Mom," Oliver responded as he reluctantly put away his toys and began getting dressed. He took off his favorite pajamas, put on his socks, pants, and his coolest fireman shirt, and finally his shoes. Oliver looked in the mirror and said to himself, "Wow, I look good." Then Oliver did something that he thought would make him look even better. Instead of putting on a belt, he pulled down the seat of his pants so that they were sagging. "Now I'm really cool," Oliver thought as he strutted around his bedroom, looking at himself from different angles and making sure his underwear was showing. With a big smile on his face, Oliver made his way into the kitchen for breakfast. Oliver's mother took one look at him and said, "Oliver Vance, pull up your pants, tuck in your shirt, and carry yourself like a decent young man." Oliver quickly replied, "But Mom, this is cool. I see it on TV, and all of the kids are wearing their pants like this at school." His mother sighed and replied, "Oliver Vance, wait and see. One day you will wish you had listened to me." In a flash, Oliver was out the door with the seat of his pants almost dragging the floor. Oops, I went a little too fast there. Hold on. As Oliver walked to the bus stop, he noticed Mr. Madison's big mean dog across the street. All of a sudden, the dog began to chase Oliver. "I can always outrun that dog," Oliver thought smugly. Oliver ran and ran, but the big mean dog was gaining on him. Oliver tried to run faster, but his sagging pants were slowing him down. He could see the bus waiting for him, and he could hear the dog's low growls as they got closer and closer. Just as the dog was closing in on him, Oliver reached the bus and jumped through the open doors. He hurried up the steps, and the doors closed behind him just in time to keep Mr. Madison's dog at bay. "Phew, that was a close call," said Oliver to the bus driver. The bus driver looked at Oliver and said, "Oliver Vance, pull up your pants, or the next time you may not be so lucky." Oliver shrugged his shoulders and walked down the aisle as the bus pulled away from the stop. He spotted an empty seat next to the prettiest girl in his school. Her name was Lindsay Love. Confident in his new look, Oliver approached Lindsay Love. "May I sit next to you?" he asked. She took one look at Oliver's sagging pants and said, "Oliver Vance, there's no chance to sit next to me until you pull up your pants." Discouraged, but yet determined, Oliver walked away to find another seat. At the next stop, more children, including Jean Levine, boarded the bus. Oliver listened as Jean asked Lindsay Love if he could sit next to her. He watched with dismay as Lindsay took one look at Jean's outfit and replied, "Yes, Jean Levine, you surely can." Oliver was upset, but wasn't willing to give up on his new look. Sagging pants are cool, he thought, even if Lindsay doesn't think so. Oliver rode the bus the rest of the way to school. anxious for others to see his new look. When he arrived at school, Oliver noticed other boys walking around with their pants sagging. The big boys seemed to have the look just right, and the little boys were trying to be just like him. Yeah, this is it, Oliver thought, feeling confident that he was one of the big boys. He couldn't help but notice that there were no teachers or other adults with their pants sagging. Nevertheless, Oliver strolled on to his classroom. Oliver loved reading, and he also loved his teacher, Mrs. Wise. To make things even better, Lindsay Love was in Oliver's class. She sat in a group with Oliver and Jean Levine. Oliver would often daydream about eating lunch and playing with Lindsay Love at recess, but he never had the courage to ask her. Now that they were at school where Lindsay could see how cool Oliver's new look was, he was sure he'd have better luck than he'd had on the bus. Once everyone was settled in and seated at their desks, Mrs. Wise announced that the new mayor would be visiting their school that afternoon, and she needed 2 students to give him a tour. The new mayor! Wow! Oliver always wanted to meet the new mayor. Whenever he saw the mayor congratulating brave firemen on TV, he imagined himself receiving such recognition one day. This is my chance, thought Oliver. He raised his hand high with hopes of being chosen as one of the students for this special privilege. Mrs. Wise looked at each student very carefully. She had to make sure she chose students who would represent her class and the school well. Finally, she decided, congratulations, Lindsay and Jean. You will give our new mayor a tour of our school this afternoon, Mrs. Wise announced. Oliver couldn't believe it. He shouted, Mrs. Wise, please pick me. Mrs. Wise looked at him and said, I would really like to let you escort the mayor around the school, Oliver, but the mayor likes to see children with their pants around their waists and not sagging. And so do I. I'm sorry, but Lindsay and Jean will be escorting the mayor instead. But Mrs. Wise, Oliver began, but the teacher interrupted. Oliver Vance, pull up your pants. Then maybe one day you'll get your chance. During lunchtime, things were looking up for Oliver. They were serving pizza, his favorite food. As he was standing in line getting ready to grab a lunch tray, the lunch lady noticed Oliver and said to him, Oliver Vance, pull up your pants, or you're going to drop your food and everyone will laugh at you. But Oliver just grabbed his tray and walked away. Oliver walked across the lunchroom with one hand holding his tray and the other hand holding up his sagging pants. Just then, he spotted an empty seat next to Lindsay Love, and Jean Levine was nowhere in sight. Now's my chance, Oliver thought, and hurried toward the empty seat, placing both of his hands on his tray to make sure he didn't drop it. Just as he got close to the table, the worst thing of all happened. Oliver's pants fell all the way down to his ankles. He tried to hurry up and pull them up, but everyone saw his underwear, but it was too late. All of the kids in the lunchroom were laughing at him, including Lindsay Love. As he fumbled to pull up his pants, his lunch tray slipped from his hands. Oh no, Oliver screamed as his pizza hit the floor. Instead of his favorite meal, he would have to have a plain sandwich for lunch. Oliver was embarrassed and really sad, but he wouldn't give up on his new look. I look cool no matter what, he told himself. When the bell finally rang, ending this horrible day, Oliver got on the bus and then walked home from the bus stop. As he walked, he thought about how he almost got bitten by a dog and missed the bus, how he didn't get chosen to escort the mayor, and worst of all, how his pants fell all the way down in the lunchroom, causing him to drop his pizza. but he still wore his pants sagging because that's the way all the cool kids were wearing their pants. I just have to get used to it, Oliver tried to convince himself. As Oliver approached his street, he noticed a crowd of people looking up in a tree. A little girl was crying and asking for help. Her kitten had climbed a tree and couldn't get down. Oliver walked up to the tree to get a closer look. This is my chance, he thought. I'll get that kitten out of the tree for the little girl, and then I'll be a hero, and everyone will think I'm really cool. Don't worry, I'll climb the tree to get your kitten, Oliver said to the crying girl and began to climb the tree. But it was almost impossible to climb the tree wearing sagging pants. He couldn't place his feet just right, and he wasn't making very much progress because he kept stopping to make sure his pants wouldn't fall off. Oliver didn't want to be embarrassed again, so he lowered himself to the ground. Right then, Jean Levine walked up to the crowd and noticed the same little girl crying. What's wrong? Jean asked. She said, my kitten is stuck in the tree and he won't come down. Jean replied, don't worry, I'll get her for you. Oliver watched with envy as Jean swiftly climbed the tree, rescued the scared kitten, and handed her over to her frightened owner. The crowd cheered for Jean Levine. The little girl beamed up at him. You're my hero, she said. Lindsay Love burst through the crowd, gave Jean Levine a kiss on the cheek and said, Jean, you're my hero. Jean blushed. Oliver stood there in a daze, wondering what else could possibly go wrong when he heard a fire truck siren in the distance. Woo, woo, woo. Even though Oliver was hurt, sad, and puzzled, he still became excited at the sound of a fire truck because where there is a fire truck, there are firemen. When the truck approached the crowd and stopped, 3 firemen jumped off of the truck and asked the crowd, did someone call the fire department about a kitten stuck in a tree? The little girl piped up, I did, but Jean Levine climbed the tree and got her down for me. The firemen turned to Jean Levine and congratulated him with hearty pats on the back. Great job, young man. One of the firemen went to the truck and returned with something in his hand. He got the crowd's attention. Jean, he said, because of your bravery and good deed, I'm presenting you with an honorary junior fireman's badge. The crowd cheered for Jean Levine as the fireman continued. If you'd like, we can take you home on the fire truck. Jean glowed with pride as he was hoisted into the front seat. Oliver began to cry. All he ever wanted to do was be a fireman, but because of his sagging pants, he missed his chance. Oliver Vance cried the rest of the way home and did some thinking too. When he walked into the house, his mother asked, Oliver, why are you crying? Oliver told her all of the horrible things that had happened to him that day. His mother listened quietly and consoled him. Oliver Vance, I told you, see, that one day you would wish you had listened to me. Oliver looked at his mother and made a decision. It didn't matter what other boys thought was cool. He had to do what was right for him. Sagging pants were not that important. So he loosened himself from his mother's embrace and walked to his room. Oliver returned with his favorite belt in his hand, and guess what he did? Oliver Vance pulled up his pants. His mother hugged him again. I'm so proud of you, Oliver. You have the courage to do what is right and not what it seems like everyone else is doing. You are brave enough to be yourself. That makes you my hero. She gave him a kiss on the cheek. And that's it. Oliver Vance, pull up your pants. I hope you all enjoyed that.
That was amazing. I enjoyed that so much, Dr. McBride, and I'm sure that our audience enjoyed that as well. And I want to be an encourager to our young people that it's okay to stand out and to be different and to do things your own way and be positive and also an example to other young people. This was an amazing book. And I love the end where his mother is an encouragement to him, not only teaching him a lesson, but allowing him to know that it's okay to embrace himself at the end of the day. This was awesome. So, if you could please share with our audience how they can connect with you on social media outlets.
Thank you. I will do that. Before I do that, I do want to say that even though this is written as a children's book, the lesson is for all ages. When you have children going off to college, they're going to have some decisions to make about being themselves as opposed to falling into everything that is available to them. Whether they're in kindergarten or college, we've actually presented this book at elementary schools and to freshman classes at universities. So it's just really meaningful no matter how old you are, because we're always having to make that decision about who we want to be. So thank you for letting me share.
Yes.
As far as social media is concerned, you can actually be Oliver's friend on Facebook. So you can look up the name Oliver Vance and send him a friend request. You can be his friend there. Connecting with me, you can do so a couple of ways. You can search for Millennium International Publishing Group on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Millennium International Publishing Group. And you can see some information about my publishing company. The other option is to look for Dr. Jessica, Life Coach. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but there's nothing posted. But just Facebook, Facebook and Instagram. Look for Dr. Jessica. So Dr. Jessica and Millennium International Publishing Group.
Amazing. Well, we are so thankful, and this was absolutely a delight. We look forward to working with you in the future. And again, the New Heart Ministry family wants to say thank you for sharing this great book with us. And we hope to see you on her social media outlets. Get in contact with Dr. Jessica and go join the family of Oliver Vance and add him as a friend on Facebook. All right, New Heart Ministries, we look forward to seeing you again in our Author's Corner. Be blessed.